colored pens up. We're going to start with question number 2, and then we're going to go back to question number 1, setting up the equation. So I talked to the class yesterday about the options for doing work in my class. The options are pick a pathway, start to finish, complete the work, decide if your answer makes sense, and make an adjustment, or ask for help. So at this point, not one person asked me for assistance, although some of you were talking amongst yourselves, and that was excellent. But I should be able to call on any person, and you should be able to give me an answer. Doesn't have to be the right answer, but it should be an answer. So we're going to get everybody involved today, so let's go to the equity bars, and let's start with number 5, number 8, number 12, number 13, and number 15. Number 5. What'd you get?
I didn't get to finish all the way. I sucked at the equation. I sucked at 3x equals 10 over 10 3 over 4.
Okay. Number 8. What'd you get? Say it again. I'm sorry.
16.
Okay. And number 12. What'd you get?
X equals 3 and 1/4.
Okay. And number 13. X equals 3. Okay. And number 15. 3 and 1/4. So we have a couple of people who agree, someone who's close. Some people totally disagree. Cameron, you wanted to chime in, and then Paige, and then Briante?
3 and 1/4.
So that's 3 people I've heard say that.
3 and 1/4.
So now we're getting a lot more support for 3 and 1/4. The correct answer is 3 and 1/4. There were a number of different equations you could set up, but the most raw equation you could set up was this. If you drew a picture, then you would have figured out that there was a margin, and then a picture, and then a space between the picture, and then another picture, then a space between the picture, and then another picture, and then another margin. And all together it had to add up to 13 1/4. If you went to simplify that right away and combine like terms, you end up with this. 3x plus 3 1/2 equals 13 1/4. Can I have one of my super high level students who's working at a really high level remind us or tell us how many steps will that equation take to solve? How many steps will that take? Right there. Sam?
2.
Yeah, it's a 2-step equation. I know there's a fraction in it and another fraction. I know that's terrifying, but it's a 2-step equation. And you should be feeling Master Jedi or Grandmaster Yoda of 2-step equations at this point. So let me go back to the beginning. Give me a thumbs up if you drew a picture. Okay? Okay. Put your thumbs down. Answer this question. Give me a thumbs up if you drew a picture and used it. Okay, good. Put your thumbs down. So if you draw a picture just because I said you should draw a picture, that's okay. But the purpose is to really use the picture to help yourself. If you're not going to use the picture, then there is no value in drawing it. So I'm pleased to see that many of you drew a picture and used it. Are there any comments, questions on today's warm-up? All right, so we're going to hit the pause. So you already knew what today's lesson was about. The title's been across the top of the screen since the warm-up started. So today we're going to explore solving multi-step inequalities. And I'm going to say some things very similar to what I said to you last time, that it's a good news, bad news situation. I think it's much more good news than anything. You already know how to solve everything. You already know how to do everything. You may have just never seen things in this particular context or in this particular way, but you already know how to do everything. So I actually do not have to teach you anything new. You just have to see some things a little bit differently. So, let's start with the basics. This should look very familiar to you. In fact, you may have wasted your time if you wrote it down, because you should have looked at it and said, wow, I already know that, because I just wrote it down yesterday with one word addition, which I put the word remember because I'm reminding you from yesterday. In fact, didn't need to copy this down either unless you have been forgetting this incredibly important rule. The rule, of course, is critical. We talked about the fact that if you forget this rule, that you will get questions wrong, and we used a visualization of a future quiz that you will have in a couple of days. I'm sorry, tomorrow, I should say. And if during that quiz you forget this rule, then you will get a whole bunch of questions wrong, which will lead to a very poor grade. So the rule is, of course, during transformation, if at any point you multiply or divide by a negative number on both sides, you must flip the inequality symbol. I was checking specifically for that as I walked around and checked your homework. And it seemed like most of you got it. So hopefully that will continue. Any comments or questions so far? So, we're going to jump in and start working with multi-step inequalities. And I'm going to continue to remind you that you already know how to do all of it. We will be graphing every solution. But I will not be talking to you about how to graph. As soon as we're done solving, you're going to immediately start to graph, and I'm going to immediately start to graph. And we're just going to basically be doing it at the same time, but we don't really need to talk about it. Our focus is going to be on how to deal with this. So, if you see 45 plus 2b is greater than 61, you should be thinking to yourself, 45 plus 2b equals 61. Now, these are different, and they have different results, but the process is the same. We are trying to isolate the variable. That is what we are trying to do, and the process is exactly the same whether it's an inequality or an equation. And that's why I said you already know what to do. So let's look here at what I wrote in blue. What would be the first thing that you would do here? Mark?
Subtract 45 from both sides.
Subtract 45 from both sides. So guess what? Subtract 45 from both sides. Work our way down. This cancels out. Did we multiply or divide by a negative number?
No.
No. I've got that neon sign flashing in my mind. If we multiply or divide by a negative number, flip the symbol. But we don't have to because we didn't do that yet. And we're left with 2b is greater than, so we don't flip the symbol, we leave it alone, is greater than, and now we just need to do 61 minus 45, which is what? 16. So we have 2b is greater than 16. My really high level students just know the answer already. If you're not ready for that yet, that's no big deal. You divide both sides by 2, and then you'll get b is greater than 8. So this is the algebraic representation of the solution. Does anyone have any questions on how we did that? Any questions or comments? So graph it. Some of you need a little work on your graph, and you know what? I'll run around with rulers real quick so we can do a little bit of a better job with that. Since we seem to be struggling with drawing some basic straight lines. But that's no big deal, we're learning. So draw a straight line. If you want to use the markings on the ruler to help you draw the tick marks, that's fine as well. But this is not something where you're methodically taking 10 minutes to draw a straight line. It doesn't need to be that perfect. It just needs to not be a mess. And so we take the 8, put it somewhere on the line, and then fill in 4 more tick marks, 4 more labels. That would be a 9, that would be a 10, 7, 6. And then put in your open or closed circle. In this case, it's open. And then make sure you shade in the proper direction. So we're shading greater than 8. Does anyone have any comments or questions on how we solved this, how we graphed it, anything at all? Any concerns? Okay, so let's continue part B. I'm not going to write an equation because at this point you've seen that technique a whole bunch of times. You should automatically be prepared to proceed now that you just see an inequality. So what do we have to do first here in this example? Kyle, what do you think?
Well, this is not.
Okay, so put a 1 in front of the x. Okay, that might help. What were you going to say, Danielle? Okay, so usually when you have a denominator, you're going to have to deal with it, and probably at the beginning. So, Kyle, if we multiply both sides by the -2, that's what will get rid of this -2. Now, a special note, and I need everyone to look up here because I might be talking about you in particular. I have a number of people when it's time to do this, I have a number of people doing this. And multiplying times -2 like that. If I look at your papers in your homework, a bunch of you wrote it like that. But that's actually totally incorrect because if I multiply the denominator times -2, that's -2 times -2, that's 4. That doesn't cancel out. That turns into a 4. How do I get it to cancel out? I get it to cancel out by multiplying the top. So you have to put the -2 on top. That's what does the canceling. This cancels that now that it's on top. And we're left with x plus 5 is greater than -6. Okay, I'm pleased to see a few people awake. Briante?
Just to switch to inequality sign because you said you multiply by negative.
Yeah. So I did not make sure that I flipped the symbol. I multiplied both sides by a -2. Have to flip the symbol. So you have to be very careful with what you're doing. Proceed at a pace that's efficient, but not so fast that you're going to make a mistake on something like that. This is exactly the kind of thing that happens during quizzes and tests when students don't prepare enough. They panic and they go fast. They can't think straight because their brains are frazzled and they continue to mess up and make mistakes like that. You cannot afford to do that. So pay attention to the rule. We multiply both sides by a negative, flip the symbol. Now we're at x plus 5 is less than -6. What's next? Go ahead, Paige.
Subtract 5 from both sides.
Subtract 5 from both sides. That disappears. We're not multiplying and dividing by a negative, we're subtracting a number. So we're left with x is less than -11. And that is the algebraic representation of the solution. And then we need to graph. Any comments, questions on how we did that? So go ahead and graph yours. I'm going to graph mine up here. Any issues whatsoever? Okay, so let's see how we do on checkpoints. Checkpoint number 1, you got 2 questions, 2 inequalities to solve and graph. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock. That's a minute and a half per question. All right, some of you are still finishing and some of you are already done. So I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock for team talk. The idea is to compare your answers with each other, compare your graphs with each other, and compare the methods that you used to solve. 2 minutes team talk. The idea is to have a discussion.
Is less than or equal to -10.
Why is it not one?
Because when you get yeah, remember, it's not
Yeah, but now it's different. Now this is like trying to see like the negatives. Oh yeah.
Why do you want minus 2?
Oh yeah.
Why do you do 1 minus 2? I've never heard. I do 1 minus 2.
Nobody.
All right. Let's come back as a group. And my first question is, if you and your teammates all either agreed or came to an agreement, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, don't put your thumb up. Okay? Good. Put your thumbs down. All right, so we have a couple teams who could not come to an agreement. That's fine. All right, let's see what we got. We're going to start with part A only. Part A only. We got teams A and E. Team A and Team E. So what did you guys get? Kyra, what did you guys get for part A?
For A, we have x is less than or equal to negative 6.
X is less than or equal to -6. What did you guys think?
X is less than or equal to -6.
So you guys all agreed, you all agreed, and you agree with them. So we get X is less than, and that is supposed to say negative. I mistakenly put in +6. So that is X is less than or equal to -6. And graphing at this point, you should have no trouble whatsoever with graphing. You put in a -6 somewhere. Put in a closed circle. Shade in. All right, I'll answer questions in a moment. So that was part A. Let's see about part B. Part B. Part B, we've got team G and team F. Team F and G, all right? So for part B, Jazz, what did your team get for part B? Okay, and Randy, what did your team get for part B? So it is n is less than or equal to -10. And when you graph that, you put a -10, -9, -8, -11, -12, closed circle, and shade. All right, so let's take a look. Let's take a look at part B. So let's take a quick look at part B. 1 minus 2n over 3 is greater than or equal to 7. Give me a thumbs up if you as an individual got this question right. Okay, Kayla, what was the first thing you did?
I multiplied both sides by
Beautifully said. Multiply both sides by 3. Notice that I put the 3 up a little bit. And that way that cancels that. And so here's where we end up with a little bit of a danger zone. We end up with 1 minus 2n is greater than or equal to 21. So now here's where I want to illustrate something. Could someone tell us, what is the sign on the 1? What's the sign on the 1, Rose? Positive, okay? So I want you to watch. And so the 1 is positive, and here is this term, And so some of you were a little uncertain about how to proceed. So watch, what if I would just do this? So now, watch this. Could someone tell us what's the step that we should do next to solve this? Forget about what it was, to solve this. Jamel? Okay, add one to both sides will give me... Well, which is it? Is it add or... You're sure? Yes, it is. But now watch why. Because, Jamel, you just illustrated an issue that was really important. Subtract 1, subtract 1. We can all agree that? Okay, we would go like this. This cancels out. And so we've got this symbol, and we've got 20. Now watch what happens when I just move this back to where it really was. Is there anything different about that?
No.
It's the same thing. So it actually doesn't matter whether this is over there or over here. The process is the same. And so we end up with negative 2n is greater than or equal to 20. And so some people were saying, well, how did we get a negative 10? Do we see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're going to divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. We just divided by a negative number, which flips the symbol. And that's why our symbol in the answer is different than the symbol in the original. And then 20 divided by negative 2 is negative 10. So that's how we get that. Are there any comments, questions, concerns? Any issues, any thoughts? All right, we're doing well so far, and I did promise that you already knew how to do everything, so we're going to continue with that theme. But we're going to elevate the level of complexity. And so we're going to take it a step further. So there is nothing new. So it's really just a review, but we got to pay attention to the inequality rules. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you feel confident you know what the first step is going to be. Give me a thumbs up if you've got some confidence that you know what the first step is going to be. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you know what it's called. Like you can actually say it. Okay, Jazz, what's the first step going to be? Beautifully said. But there's one more thing I want to illustrate for my students who are still getting a little confused. That is a negative 4 times a positive 2, and that's a negative 4 times a negative x. We still have some people, not everyone, but some people still confused. So I want to rewrite this in a different way and show you what my brain, after all these years, automatically does for me. This is what I see. That's what I see. So some of you who are still saying to yourself, but Mr. Gow, that's subtraction. Well, it is, but it's also, it's subtraction, but it is also a negative number. So that is really that. And so this is really negative 4 times 2 and negative 4 times negative x. And what your brain should do is insert the word and in between. 2 and negative x. That's it. So nothing to struggle about. You guys know what you're doing. Let me just back out of this. So, as Jazz said, distribute. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 4 times negative x, what will that become? Now you actually have to do it. Juliana? Very good. Positive 4x. As less than or equal to 8. Now, do we flip the symbol?
No. Wait, yes, you do.
Multiplied by a negative, do we flip the symbol?
Oh, yes.
Give me a thumbs up if you think we should flip the symbol. Okay, we got a couple people over here, a couple people over there. Okay, so let me go back to the rule. And I want to underline 2 words. Also, this is only during a transformation. This that we just did is not a transformation. What we just did is called simplify. That's not a transformation. So we do not flip the symbol in this case. We do not flip the symbol. All right, so now we just proceed as we've been taught. Now the rest should be pretty clear. We just talked about this and how we could flip-flop and move this over here. So what should the next step be? What should we do? Cameron?
Add 8 to both sides.
Add 8 to both sides. We're doing the inverse. That disappears and we get 4x is less than or equal to 16. We didn't multiply or divide by a negative number, so no need to flip anything. And my really high-level students can mentally complete this. Students who still need to see it, last step is simple. Divide both sides. X is less than or equal to 4. That is the algebraic representation, and then we graph. Anyone have any questions on how we completed this? So let's go ahead and graph 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 2. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Any issues? Any thoughts? Okay, well I had another one, but I don't think we need it. I think we're going to go straight to checkpoint number 2. Let's see how you do on your own. Although, I've upped the level of complexity again. So, let's put 4 minutes on the clock. 2 minutes per question. Remember, you must graph each when you are done finding the answer. If you have any concerns or questions, just raise your hand. I will come help you. Feel free to quietly talk amongst your team. This is not official team talk, but quietly talk amongst your team if you feel like they can help you. What's the mantra that I taught? 3 words. Something then solve. You simplify everything. That is simple. What is someone's In fact, you can just change that to Perfect. All right, you've got 1 minute to compare answers with your teammates. Team talk.
What you guys doing for? Did you? I tried to do the other way.
All right, now we're back as a whole group. So let's get lots of people involved, but let's first see how the teams fared. Let's just look at part A. Give me a thumbs up if you and your team agreed on part A. If your team and you did not agree, don't put your thumb up. All right, put your thumbs down. Sticking with part A, I've got teams A, D, and F. Team A, what did your team get, Kiara?
It was less than -10.
Okay, team D. Where's team D? Essence, what did your team get? And your whole team agreed? I think you guys had your thumbs up and your whole team agreed. And where's team F? Right over here. Christopher, what did your team agree on? Which is what I think so far everyone has said. And so we get M, and that's supposed to be a -10. That was my mistake that I accidentally typed positive. So it is M is less than -10. And the graph, again, we're not really spending much time discussing. You should have -10 somewhere, -9, -8, -11, -12.
Sorry, John.
And then we've got open circle here, shading in there. Any comments, questions on part A? Good. Let's see how we did on part B. Give me a thumbs up if you and your teammates agreed on part B. So I got 1 team, 2 teams, 3, 4. So only 4 of the teams agreed, which is good. Let's see what happens. I've got teams B, C, and H, which means you. So team B, what? We're back as a whole group now. Team B, what was your solution for part B?
B is greater than -1/2.
Okay, and your whole team agreed. I think you had your thumbs up. Team, who was next? Team, who was next? Team C. Okay. Kayla, what did your team agree on part B? Okay, and in the back.
B greater than 1
Okay, so B is greater than 1.5. I got 3 teams that agreed on that. Graphing, you can do a bunch of different ways. If you like to label with whole numbers and you wanted to put a 1 and a 2, and then put an open circle in between indicating halfway, you could do that. Or you could just say that this is 1.5, and that's 2, and that's 2.5, and that's 1, and that's 1/2. And then put your open circle there, and then shade above. Any comments, questions? So, I tried to throw you off a little bit, and the publisher is going to try and throw you off with these exponents. And initially, some of you took an approach that wasn't really valid, and I don't know if it was whether your instincts kicked in, or you got help, or you asked a question. It doesn't really matter, but many of you realized that it wasn't there to really trick you. It's just a different way of representing a value. And so I'm going to just model what happens with me. And I do this all the time. I tell you what's going on in my head, but not because I'm telling you I'm smarter than you and you should be doing what's in my head. I'm saying it because you guys are actually smarter than I am mathematically. I just have more experience. So I have experience on my side. You have the brain power on yours. So my experience has taught me that if I see this, I don't even see it. My brain immediately translates it into its value. 5 squared is really what? 25. So I don't even see it. I just immediately saw that. Same thing here. And one of your classmates talked me through, their next line looked like this. And that told me immediately that that student did exactly what I do, which is they said, okay, that is not really 2 to the 3rd power, that's really an 8. Because it's the same value. 2 to the 3rd power is the same as 8. 8 times 3 is 24. And so that's what you just need to get used to, the fact that you can change the way a number is represented, the way a value is represented into different forms. Okay? Any comments or questions about that? Any concerns? All right, so we have been leading up to the last step for actually quite a while, not just today, but for a couple of weeks. We have not spent nearly enough time on the application of these ideas, and so we're going to spend a fair amount of time on it today. So, everyone, of course, writes example 3. You don't have to write what's in parentheses. That's just a theme of the example. And then for my examples that are real world, usually you don't have to copy them. My policy on my lessons is if it's an example, you need to copy it. Checkpoints, you don't have to copy. But, and a little addendum, a little extra is that if it's like this, you don't have to copy it, because if we did, we'd be sitting here for 20 minutes copying. But of course, you have to read it carefully, and you need to actually think about it as you're reading it and when you finish reading. So I'm going to give you a moment to read, and then we're going to start working together. So, we're going to attack this together. But before we do, I want to say that if up until this point, when I have given you homework assignments, you have struggled with the real-world questions that are usually the second half of the assignment. If you've struggled with those, that's more than fair. I expect you to try, and many of you have had some success. But to say that you haven't had enough experience with it is a fair thing to say. But starting today, moving forward, you should be feeling much more comfortable with real-world scenarios. Okay? So now we're going to jump in. So, we have 2 players in the story, 2 characters. They're not people, but I still refer to them as characters. We have Rent a Ride, which is a company, and we have We Got Wheels. It's another company. Those are the 2 characters. Before we write anything, we're going to do some estimating. We're going to actually analyze the situation a little bit. So we got some rapid fire questions. Put your pencil down and keep yourselves with me. So double check the question. Make sure you've got the numbers going in your head. If I am going to rent a vehicle just for one day and I'm only going to drive 1 mile, exactly 1 mile, which company should I rent from? Juliana? We got Wheels? What do you think, Jamel? Okay, so they agree with each other. Give me a thumbs up, everyone, if you agree with their assessment. That it should be We Got Wheels? Okay. Keep your thumb up if you could say why. Okay, Janae, why?
Because it's 6.24 miles, and you just added to 38, you have 38,000 pesos.
That was a phenomenal explanation. That was incredibly good explanation. Okay, new rapid fire question. I'm going to rent a vehicle only for one day, but I'm going to drive exactly 2 miles. 2 miles, exactly. Which company should I rent from? In your opinion? Raquel? Marlon, which one? So you agree with her. Okay, everyone else, give me a thumbs up if you think We Got Wheels is a better choice if I am only going to drive for 2 miles. Keep your thumb up if you can explain. Don't keep your thumb up because I'm going to call on you if you can't explain. Okay, Kyle, how come? That was a great explanation. New rapid fire question. I'm going to rent a car for one day. I'm going to drive exactly 10 miles. 10 miles exactly. Which place should I rent the car from? Andrew, what do you think? We Got Wheels. Okay, Briante, what did you think? You agree with him? Okay. Everybody else, give me a thumbs up if you think it's still We Got Wheels. Okay, keep your thumb up if you can explain. Essence, explain. Another fantastic explanation. So we've got 3 examples. We can keep going. The question is, how many miles will it be when the rent-a-ride is less than We Got Wheels? So far, every example that I did, every rapid-fire example, We Got Wheels was less. So the question is, when will rent-a-ride be less? So we can keep going. I went 1, 2, 10. I could do 20. And we could keep guessing. But there's a more efficient way, and that's what algebra is all about. Algebra is about finding solutions to problems in an efficient way. Not only that, finding it in a way that you could actually then utilize again for a future question. So we could keep guessing and checking. That's a valid method called guess and check. But that's not our goal here in this class. Our goal is to be efficient and high level. So now let's approach this from a different point of view. Now let's get the 2 players down on paper. We've got rent-a-ride, and now you're working together with me. We've got rent-a-ride, and we've got We Got Wheels. We want to take the information from the question and write an expression for rent-a-ride, an algebraic expression, and we want to write an algebraic expression for We Got Wheels, and then we want to use them to do something. So let's start with rent-a-ride. What do we know about rent-a-ride? What do we know? Sam?
It costs $55 per day for with unlimited miles.
Good. So how could I write that in like a numerical or algebraic way?
I did $55 over 1 day.
Okay. So $55 over 1 day. Very good. So it's $55 over 1 day. Now, I'm going to do something that I don't know if I should do, but I'm going to try and help us out a little bit because it does get a little confusing. It talks about per day, and then it talks about per mile. And I think I made a mistake, so let me fix it. I wrote, for what number of miles is the cost of rent-a-ride less than the cost of We Got Wheels? What I meant to write was, if we just rent for one day. So I should have put that in there. So we're only talking about one day, no matter what. So we actually don't need this because no matter what, if I only rent for one day, rent-a-ride costs $55. So Sam is 100% correct. This is technically how we should write it. But since it's only one day, no matter what, we're just going to put 55. Don't worry, as you get more experience, you'll understand. So rent-a-ride is just $55 for the day. That's it. I don't have to pay any more money than that. I walk into their store, I give them $55, they give me a car, I leave, I drive around, I come back, I drop off the car, and that's it. It's done. We Got Wheels is more complex. So what expression could we write for We Got Wheels to represent their pay structure? Okay, we got 3 people who have an idea. That's fine. Got a bunch of people. Okay, good. Briante, what were you thinking?
0.20 m plus 38.
Okay, so 0.20 m. Like this?
Yeah.
Okay, what does that represent?
Miles per day, per mile.
Okay, so it's the 20 cents times the number of miles. Is that right? Times? Okay. And then you said do what? Add 38. So you can see, if you think about what Danae said earlier and what Kyle said, Danae goes, yeah, if you just take the 1, multiply by 20 cents, that's 20 cents, plus 38, it's $38.20. Kyle went, well, it was 20 cents, you multiply it times 2, you get 40 cents, add it to the 38. Then Essen said, 10 miles, 10 times 20 cents is $2, add it to the 38. So it's always figure out the cost per mile and then add it to the 38. That's the pattern. So we have an expression for rent-a-ride, we have an expression for We Got Wheels, and the question is, for what number of miles is the cost of rent-a-ride less than the cost of We Got Wheels? So now, this is what is meant by efficient. Now we've got a beautiful, simple inequality set up that we can solve to find the number of months. You already are an expert at solving an inequality like this, so we can just go ahead and you can follow along with me, or some of you are probably already ahead of me. Subtract 38, subtract 38. Let's see, that comes out to 17. And we have 0.20 m. Divide by that. Divide by that. I'm going to finish here. What is 17 divided by 0.2? What does that come out to? Paige?
85.
So we get 85 is less than m. Well, that's a little weird the way it's written. We're used to the variable on the left. So if we use the symmetric property, what can we change it into? DeAndre?
N is greater than 85.
That's right. You have to flip the whole thing. M is greater than 85. So now, that is the result of solving the inequality. But now we need interpretation. Because many of you still think that the answer is 85. I heard someone earlier say, why do we have to graph? Well, we don't have to graph this question, but graphs actually show why 85 is actually not an answer. See these open circles? Why are they open? What does that mean? Okay?
Because it's saying, like, can I use that example?
Of course.
It's saying that anything less than -10 is an answer.
What about -10 exactly?
It's not including.
It's not including -10. I love the way you said that. And so if we fast forward now to what we were just working on, m is greater than 85 actually does not include 85. So what would happen if I only drove the car for 80 miles? Which company would cost less if I only drove 80 miles? Juliana? We Got Wheels would still cost less. So at what point does Rent-A-Ride become less? It's when we go over 85. So since you have to pay for exact whole miles, you can't pay for half a mile, it would be 86 miles or more. So that's interpretation. 86 miles or more is the same thing as this, but this is much more human. This makes more sense to us as humans. 86 miles or more, okay, I get that. I would have to drive for 86 miles or more, and I will save money by renting from Rent-A-Ride. If I drive 85 miles exactly, does anyone know what happens? What happens if I drive exactly 85 miles? Today? It's actually exactly the same price. So that's why the interpretation is so important. Anyone have any comments or questions? Okay, so you guys have done a really good job, and we have more to go, but I just want to show you something. Don't write anything, and don't. We're just going to look at this together for a moment. It's a similar type of question. Now, I made up the numbers a little bit. It's a real scenario, but I changed the numbers because it didn't really make sense otherwise. Anyone use Amazon services? I use. Very cool stuff, by the way. So they have a new plan that they do call Amazon Unlimited. I don't think it costs $40, but we're going to pretend it does. They've had a plan called Amazon Prime for a long time. You pay a yearly fee, and then some of their different services you get a much lower price for, like shipping, but you can also get movies and shows for free as well. They're unlimited. You just pay one fee, and you don't have to pay any extra cost, and then you actually get books for free and all kinds of stuff. So here's the situation. You get to choose. Do you want Prime or do you want Unlimited? Why would you choose one over the other? It depends on your preferences. If you're going to watch 3 movies, you don't love movies, but you want to be able to watch a movie every once in a while. If you're going to only watch 3 movies, then it probably makes sense to get the $25 membership and then just pay for those 3 movies. Because 3 times $1.25 is $3.75 plus 25, that's under $30. But if you watch a movie a week with your family and you guys love movies, then the unlimited plan might be for you because then you're just paying the $40, you don't have to pay any money per movie, and it will save you money. So the question is, at what point exactly would the unlimited be better off than the Prime? So it's a very similar situation to what we were just talking about with different numbers. The 2 players in this situation is Prime and Unlimited. So you need expressions for both of them, okay? So we're not going to do this. I wanted to just show you that it was a similar scenario, just different names and different numbers. So now you're going to try one on your own and see how you do. Checkpoint number 3. Read it carefully. And you've got, we'll say 4 minutes on the clock. Seems like a lot of you are done. That's fine. Start your team talk right now. You got 1 minute team talk. Compare how you did it. Compare your answers.
This is a team talk.
Right? Because it's not less than, I got answer one, less than 8. So it's gonna be like 7 or 8.
Alright, back as a whole group. And let's see how we did. Let's get teams A, B, and D. A, B, and D. Actually, let's start in the back with D, B, and then A. D. What did you guys get as your solution? Caesar, we'll start with you.
We got greater than 7.5.
Okay. Marlon, what did your team figure out?
We got M is greater than 7.5, but since you can't pay half yet, 8. So
Okay. Good thought. And Kiara, what did you guys come up with?
M is greater than 7.5.
Okay. So I think a lot of you had the symbol flip-flop the way you interpreted the question. So I asked what numbers of months it was less expensive to have the monthly membership. So in this case, the monthly membership needed to be less than the yearly membership. So unfortunately, you guys had the teams that shared, you clearly did it right, but you had the symbol flip-flop the wrong way. And if you had gone back to the original question and put in the information. So Marlon, your interpretation was great, that you can't have half a month, very important. But Jazz, if we put 8 in the monthly membership, how much does it cost? I'm sorry, some of you are, I'm talking now to everybody, not just Jazz. Jazz was helping out. If we put 8 in the monthly membership, how much will it cost? That would cost $340. 30 times 8 is $240, plus the 100, that's $340. Is that less than this?
Yes. I mean, no.
No. So you guys unfortunately got the direction wrong, and it unfortunately caused a lot of issues. So part of this is about reading and being careful about which way you're pointing things. That makes a difference. If that was on a quiz, I would mark it wrong, so you have to be very careful. Okay? Does anyone have any questions or comments about checkpoint number 3? Okay, draw a line across your paper. Your homework is page 93, numbers 1 through 10, and page 94, numbers 1 through 4. That's a total of 14 questions. And you have a quiz tomorrow and that will be 2-1 to 2-3. So it will not include today's lesson. It includes